Revelation, a Book of Visions, Introduction, Part 4, Old Testament Imagery, the Babylonian Exile. For this study, either before the video or after the video, read Jeremiah chapters 39 through 43, 2 Kings 24 and 25, and 2 Chronicles 36. Then reread the book of Revelation. Revelation draws powerfully from the imagery and trauma of the Babylonian conquest and exile, one of the most defining events in Israel's history. That event, when Jerusalem was besieged, the temple destroyed, and God's people carried off to Babylon, left a deep scar on Israel's memory, theology, and longing for restoration. John taps into that story in Revelation to reveal the spiritual exile of the church and God's coming judgment upon the forces that hold his people captive. Babylon Revisited, Exile Imagery in Revelation. When Revelation uses the name Babylon, it's not talking about the literal empire from 600 years earlier. It's using Babylon as a symbol, a spiritual archetype of any power that opposes God and seduces God's people into idolatry. Just as ancient Babylon destroyed Jerusalem and took Israel into exile, Babylon the Great in Revelation stands for the world system that corrupts, deceives, and exerts pressure on the faithful. Fallen is Babylon the Great, Revelation 18:2. This is a direct echo of Isaiah 21:9, and the fall of the historical Babylon becomes a sign of what God will ultimately do to every empire that sets itself up in pride. Number 1, the name Babylon and the power of empire. In Revelation, Babylon becomes a symbolic name for Rome and for every empire like it. Rome, like Babylon, was powerful, wealthy, proud, and brutal. It crushed opposition, seduced the nations, and offered peace in exchange for loyalty. But Revelation unmasks the beast behind the throne. It shows that Babylon is not just political, but spiritual. Babylon the Great, the mother of prostitutes and of earth's abominations, Revelation 17:5. This vivid image recalls the prophetic critiques of Babylon and Jerusalem in the Old Testament, accusing them of spiritual adultery and of abandoning their covenant with God. Number 2, exile as a pattern for the church's life. Just as Israel lived in exile in Babylon, the early Christians lived in exile as exiles in the Roman world. John writes to the churches who are under pressure, some persecuted, others tempted to compromise. Revelation calls them to faithfulness in exile. They're not in physical Babylon, but they are surrounded by its values. This echoes the messages of Jeremiah to the exiles. Live faithfully where you are, but don't forget where you belong. See Jeremiah 29. Come out of her, my people, so that you will not share in her sins. Revelation 18:4. This is a spiritual call to exodus from exile, to resist the assimilation of Babylon, to remain holy and distinct, and to hope for God's deliverance. 3. Lament over a fallen city. Revelation 18 contains a detailed lament over the fall of Babylon. The merchants weep, the kings mourn, the sea captains are stunned. This echoes the laments over Jerusalem and Babylon in books like Lamentations, Isaiah, and Jeremiah. In 1 hour, your doom has come, Revelation 18:10. This sudden, catastrophic fall mirrors the shock and grief of exile and reminds readers that no empire, no matter how powerful, is beyond the reach of God's justice. Number 4, hope for a new Jerusalem. The most striking contrast to Babylon in Revelation is the New Jerusalem. See Revelation 21. Just as Babylon is a symbol of corruption and exile, New Jerusalem is a symbol of restoration and return. It's the opposite of exile. It's home. For those who have remained faithful in Babylon, who have endured exile with integrity, God promises a place of belonging, beauty, and peace. Now the dwelling of God is with his people. Revelation 21:3. This is the end of exile. No more tears, no more destruction, no more being strangers in a foreign land. Conclusion. Revelation as exile and homecoming. Revelation doesn't just predict the future, it names our present reality. We live in Babylon. We live in a culture that tempts us to compromise, that rewards faithlessness, and that often seems more powerful than God's kingdom. But Revelation also promises that Babylon will fall. And for those who live as exiles now, who resist, who remain faithful, who refuse to bow, there is a promise. Exile will end. The temple will be rebuilt, not by human hands, but by the Lamb of God. The city will be restored, and we will all go home. Section 1. The name Babylon and the power of the empire. Why do you think John chose the name Babylon instead of simply saying Rome? What impact does that have on how we read Revelation today? Number 2. In what ways can modern nations, systems, or cultures act like Babylon? What are some of the characteristics of empires that seduce or oppress? Revelation 17:5 describes Babylon as the mother of prostitutes and of earth's abominations. How does this language help us understand the spiritual nature of the conflict? Section 2. Exile as a pattern for the church's life. Question number 4. Jeremiah told the exiles to seek the welfare of the city while also reminding them that they are not home. How can we live faithfully in a culture that doesn't always share our values? Question 5. What pressures do Christians face today that mirror the temptations of Babylon? Are we more tempted by comfort and assimilation, or more shaped by resistance? Question 6. What does it mean to come out of her, my people? Is this a physical separation or a spiritual distinction? What does that look like in practice? Section 3. Lament over a fallen city. Why does Revelation include a lament over Babylon's fall rather than just a celebration? What does this teach us about how we view judgment? Question 8. Read Revelation 18 alongside of Lamentations 1. How does the emotional tone of exile shape the way we respond to injustice or collapse in our world? Section 4. Hope for a New Jerusalem. Question 9. What does the New Jerusalem in Revelation 21 represent? How is it the opposite of Babylon? Question 10. How can the vision of a restored city shape our hope and mission today? What does it mean to long for home while still living in exile? Question 11. Revelation promises God will wipe away every tear. How does this image contrast with the grief of exile and the fall of Babylon? Conclusion. Living as exiles, hoping for home. Question 12. In what ways do you experience spiritual exile in your own life? Are there places you feel out of step with the values of the culture around you? Question 13. How can the church cultivate resilience and faithfulness while living in Babylon? Question 14. If Babylon represents spiritual captivity, what does it mean to live free even while still in exile? And finally, question 15. What does Revelation teach us about where our true citizenship lies, and how should that shape our daily lives?